If you've been feeling a bit stuck in the bench press, perhaps a bit stiff and not really able to get a big arch and setup, well, you're in luck. We're going to be exiting out 2024, the flat back bench press year, and welcoming 2025, the year of the bench press arch. In today's video, I'd like to talk about 3 things that will help you improve your bench press arch and setup to hopefully bench some weight in 2025. My name is Natalie Richards, and I am a world champion powerlifter and powerlifting coach. And today I'd like to talk about the bench press, specifically how to grow your bench press arch. Now, this can be like kind of a daunting and frustrating area of technique with powerlifters who feel like they're trying really hard to get a big arch to limit range of motion and press heavier weight, but they just can't quite either get into position or figure out a good kind of setup to get them to do so to where they feel strong. So my goal in today's video is to go through kind of 3 different areas of how to actually create your arch, and hopefully you can bench some pretty big weight at the end. So we're gonna be talking about 3 main things. 1, upper back extension. So just physically how to hopefully get your back a little bit looser to be able to get into an arched position. And then 2, creating tension in your setup. So tension throughout that extended position, and then tension obviously with legs as well. And then 3, kind of at the end, a variation of bench press / a way of cueing your bench press to hopefully keep in mind like how to create and maintain arch throughout a lift, whether it's a heavy single or you're doing rep sets. So with that being said, we're gonna cover those 3 topics today's video to hopefully create a bigger arch and then hopefully therefore, thusly, a better bench press. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about just in general is going to be the upper back extension. So letting your back extend, that is where the arch is coming from. There's kind of a common misconception to where you need to arch with like your lower back when that's really not the case. So we need to create some movement in the upper back that allows us to be 1, in a safe position with our shoulders, but 2, just have that nice pretty arch that we see with a lot of bench press setups. So to do so, there's kind of like 3, I would say like stretching / mobility things I typically would recommend. I do, on a good day, most of them, but the first one I think is super beneficial is the preacher stretch. So, or the prayer stretch, some people call it. So what you want to do here in this movement is just pretty much open up that upper back extension. So this is something that can be done before you actually start benching and get it under the barbell. So you're going to get on your knees and place your elbows on top of ideally the bench you're about to use. It's the easiest way to do so. And really with this stretch, you're going to be using breathing to let that upper back kind of become more extended and open up a bit. Create this kind of like 90 degrees and then put the elbows on the bench pad and kind of look down. So you should already feel a good bit of stretching as you're doing this. And then what you're going to do from there is breathe in, and on the exhale, we're going to really let our chest sink. Now, what you don't want to do is dump your lower back or lean backwards. We're all focused on this opening up of the chest and opening up the upper back. So you could do this ideally 3 times, and let's say that's 1 round. So we want to, every breath, just sink a little bit lower and lower. So 3 breaths is 1 set. Let's call it that. Elbows on the bench / triceps on the bench. We're going to breathe in. We're going to exhale and let ourselves sink. So like you can do 2 sets of 3 breaths. I think that would be an adequate warm-up for this, just to get that upper back extension. And if something you struggle with, then go ahead and do that before every time you bench. Now, I'm an old lady, so I always foam roll before squatting, benching, or deadlifting. So I just love foam rolling my upper back because it cracks. Now, this is optional, but I do think it does kind of allow the upper back to feel that extension before even getting under the barbell too. So I recommend it. Just do some light foam rolling. It doesn't have to be extreme. You don't have to be like dying in agony. Just kind of let your upper back extend and let your arms raise so you feel kind of a little bit more limber and loose if you're like me, 900 years old and need a little bit more movement. And then the last movement is going to be the cat-cow stretch. So you're taking your upper back and lower back through flexion and extension. So it's just kind of a good movement. Anywhere from like 2 sets of like 5 to 10 reps will be more than adequate. If you're doing the preacher / prayer stretch and the foam rolling, you could honestly probably get away with like 1 set of 5 on this like cat and cow. Okay, so that's the kind of mobility / stretching movement before you get under the barbell to allow that upper back to feel a little bit more extended. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is creating the actual arch. How do we get from this to that, right? So with that being said, you kind of make a checklist of your setup because your setup is going to dictate your lift. Like if you have the barbell out in front of you, you are not going to do much with your positioning at that time. Like you have very limited ways to actually get set if you haven't done anything in the setup to create tension. Like you won't be able to just boom, bam, create a really great arch and tension. If you just whack the barbell out and say, all right, let's go, let's do this. Like, you have to create tension throughout the setup. So with that being said, step one, if you're just laying on your back, you're going to move your shoulders and kind of walk them down the bench pad a little bit. So instead of having your eyes directly under the barbell, you're now going to be below it. Because what we're going to do from here is we're going to use our legs, our feet, and slide up under the barbell. And that slide is going to create some arch. On the slide, since we are using our legs to push ourselves under the barbell, our butt is going to be off the bench pad. And what really helps, I think, with the arch is having that butt lift off. And then when you pull the barbell up and out, then you put the butt down, because we get so much more extension and movement with our butt up, I would argue, than with it down. Now, if you aren't, again, like I said, that flexible, you don't have that much mobility, that's okay. We're all different. I'm not going to have the same mobility as Jerry. Jerry's doing his own thing. Who knows what he's doing? But like, we're all built different. So if you don't have your butt really high in the air, it's okay. Just try to use all that leg drive to get you slid up under the barbell, and then pull it out before letting your glutes touch the bench, or if they already are touching the bench, just really hold on to that leg drive and try not to let the butt sink anymore onto the bench pad. Now, there's 3 points of contact in the bench press when talking about powerlifting and its like style. You have your feet into the ground, you have your upper back / kind of like traps into the bench pad, and then you have your hands into the barbell. Those are the 3 points of tension. If we think about our butt as a point of tension, if we're just like plopping that bad boy down on the bench pad, we're gonna lose probably a good bit of arching, and we're probably gonna lose a little bit of leg drive too, I would argue, because if we're actively like forcing our butt as low as possible, it's gonna probably create a very like crunched lower back position, and then our legs aren't going to be able to get that beautiful extension that we're trying to get through the leg drive as well. Okay, so we have 3 points of contact. From this position to where our eyes are no longer below the barbell, we are going to plant our feet and do a little slide. Now, depending on how mobile you are, you can do a really big slide. I do a long slide up the bench pad as I have a very high arch. If you don't have a very high arch or a lot of mobility, then you probably don't need to slide like as much. But what we're doing this slide is we're laying our lower back relaxed. We don't want anything tight, inhibiting the ability of the extension to grow. We're gonna have a pretty loose upper back too, and we're gonna think about driving our traps / kind of top of our shoulders here into the bench pad. So we're going to create the tension there. We have tension in the feet, tension in the bench pad with the upper back, and then as we slide up, we're going to push our palms into the barbell. So we have really great tension, and we're gonna stop our slide when our eyes are then under the barbell. So we're back in that ideal start position where we can push the barbell up and bring it out. Now, when we're pushing up and out, I personally like to go ahead and tighten my upper back, aka like retract my scaps a bit more and get tighter. Some people prefer to do that after they've let their butt settle. I recommend kind of taking it in 2 steps if you're not familiar with this kind of like pattern. Now we're in this great position. We've let the upper back and lower back relax on that slide, creating the arch. We've let the barbell come up and out. Our glutes are now on the bench pad. And what we can do from here is, if you feel a little bit loose, you can think about like kind of drawing almost your like kind of scaps together and thinking about like pulling your chest up briefly and tightening your upper back then, because we've already solidified the arch position. So if you feel loose, now's the time to tighten, get ready before we go ahead and get the start command and start benching. So in summary, 1, walk our shoulder blades down the bench pad. 2, use our leg drive to slide ourselves up the bench pad. 3, unrack. 4, butt down. And then 5, just kind of tighten the upper back, feel nice and secure, make sure your elbows are locked, all the good comp standard things, and kind of get that retraction of your scaps kind of together. Because in the bench press, your like rhomboids are going to do a ton of work, and your scaps as well are going to move a little bit throughout the lift. So just make sure that you feel nice and stable before starting the actual descent down. But we've created the arch in that step. So from there, we have upper back extension, we have the mobility, we have the positioning. Now to practice this. One of my favorite cues and variations, I think, that goes right along with it when I'm programming for an athlete. I'm pretty sure David Wilson talks about this, and my coach Steve Denovi talks about this all the time, but kind of cueing that on the descent of the bench press, when you're bringing the barbell down, think about actively reaching with your chest to meet the barbell those last like 2 inches off the chest. So if we are just stagnant and not really actively trying to meet the barbell with our chest, we're more likely to sink, lose our arch. Our shoulders are now in a bad position that's not going to really allow us to press efficiently. Try pressing a barbell like this versus this. It's a lot easier. So we're going to bring the barbell down about 2 inches off the chest. Think about pulling that chest up, trying to reach the barbell we're gonna pause and then press back up. So thinking about that and cueing the bench press that way is super, super helpful in not losing your arch, not losing leg drive, not losing tension. So all the things. A good variation I would recommend if you don't already have it in your bench program is implement tempo bench press, because you have to go so slow. There's so much time. You're just hanging out for like 3 to 5 business days as the bar comes down to just think about pulling your chest up to meet the barbell and feeling tension in the bench press. Because that's a really great variation to slow everything down, and that allows us to just focus on what we need to do technically. That, coupled with the cueing of reaching your chest up to the barbell, is super, super helpful. Last note on the cueing thing there is, just a small note, bracing is different on all 3 lifts, but ideally in the bench press, you should feel almost like you're holding your breath, obviously, in your chest, but that should feel like you're really elevating as you're bringing the barbell down too. So like, make sure you are like taking your brace at the top before you get started. I personally take it before I unrack the barbell and just hold my breath, or you can take it right before you start the descent down. Just, breathe a little, but not too much. All right, so those are the main 3 things I want to touch on that have really helped us build a better arch. If we can create a position that allows us to push more weight and feel strong, hit, IPF bench depth rules, have a little bit less range of motion in the process, then definitely do so. So again, just start with kind of the mobility first, then get into position, then getting into the bracing and implementing this in your program. I think that's kind of a good way to go about things. If you don't already, I do have an Instagram account. Follow me. It's Nat_lifting. I post a heck of a lot more there than I have on YouTube lately, but the goal with 2025 is not only have a good bench press, to also upload here more. So let me know down below in the comments what you'd like to see on this channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys hopefully next week for another video. Bye.